Joel? Joel? Joel, are you okay? Joel?
Shut up.
They do a wonderful job of showing what it's like to go through a panic attack. When you end up with that rush of adrenaline, when your body's going into fight or flight, often you get this tunnel vision. Everything seems muted as your body goes into this fight for survival.
Dying?
I'm okay. I'm fine.
No, but are you? Because
It's because you're so busy just trying to survive. You need to shut everything else out. It's overwhelming. And then that sound, yes, you end up with this rush of blood, and often your vision and your sound, everything that happens in your head is kind of becomes tunnel visioned when all you're focusing on is just taking that next step. Your body really does believe that it's in a life or death decision. And in this case, it's not actually during the event. This is after the event. And for panic attacks, that usually is what it is, because if not, it would just be your body getting into a call of action. When we're fighting something, we don't consider that a panic attack. We consider that survival. After, when we're thinking about the gravity of the situation or all the things that we've been through, that can often cause our fail-safe of there's danger, I'm gonna send a rush of adrenaline.
because just a reminder that you're dead, I'm
Fine.
okay.
Just cold air. All of a sudden.
And you have to think about all the things that Joel has just been through in such a short amount of time. That gives him also some post-traumatic stress. He's been through the death of Tess, the death of Henry, the death of Sam, and the gravity of the situation of having to keep someone else alive who reminds him of his daughter, who he also could not keep alive. And though you would say, you know what, it's not his fault in any of these cases, you can only do the best that you can. For Joel, he's that personality that carries everything on his shoulders.
All right, so let's go and find Tommy and the fireflies.
And what you want to do during a panic attack, Joel, that taking that moment for yourself and saying, I'm okay, that really works. Saying that there is no danger, there is no tiger, I can only do the best that I can, lowers our threshold for feeling like there is a danger, that we're going to need a rush of adrenaline. Now, these rushes of adrenaline happen more often when we look at ourselves and don't think that we're going to be able to survive this situation on our skills alone, or when bad things have already happened, which makes us doubt ourselves.
All we have to do is cross the river of death.
How is Joel dealing with these panic attacks? Well, we've seen before that he's dealt with his anxiety or stress by medicating through alcohol or through drugs. Here, he's kind of on his own, so he hasn't learned a ton of skills at being able to really understand what are his internal thoughts. I would not say that Joel is a person that's really in touch with his emotions and feels comfortable to be able to share these deep emotions with other people. And so because of that holding everything in, when it all kind of comes out, it often comes out as anger or anxiety.
You've been near infected?
Now her.
And you see in that moment, Joel freezes up. He goes through that fight or flight. You can hear that noise. That's when his anxiety system is fully activated. He knows that Ellie is in a lot of danger. I think that we're really often very hard on ourselves depending on our fight or flight response. You really never know what you're going to do. In different situations, your body may decide to do something different. Adaptively, that was a really good idea, that not everyone is going to react exactly the same way. Some of us are going to faint, some of us are going to freeze, some of us are going to fight, some of us are going to flight. That allowed us, that variability allowed that some of us would survive no matter what the situation was, because we're all going to do something that's a little bit different. You can tell that for Joel and for me when I was watching this scene, I'm like, oh my God, do something, she's in danger. He couldn't do anything. And also, it's really hard to process when you have this rush of different feelings and it seems like a moment seems like an hour. And yes, you can train yourself to have a certain reaction. That's what the military does. That's what happens if you're dealing with martial arts and a lot of training in certain situations, and also police officers and people that run security. They actually train themselves to maybe do something that's counterintuitive to what their body would actually do in a circumstance. But that takes a lot of training. Now again, some of us though are naturally adapted to fight or flight in certain situations, and sometimes that's the right thing to do, and sometimes it's not.
You just bought yourself 10 more seconds. What are you doing out here?
Just looking for my brother.
Pedro does a really good job of that relief of as that rush of adrenaline goes through your system, then you're breathing again. And often for anxiety, it's these short chest breaths. It's not that deep, long belly breaths that means that we're really calm. The anxiety that you feel, you can really sense it more inside of your chest, though we can also just hold our breath sometimes when we're going through a lot of anxiety. Remember that sometimes it's a good thing to freeze or to faint. Some animals aren't going to attack something that doesn't run. So even though you may be really hard and judgmental to the reaction that your body has, sometimes that actually will be the right thing to do. So what do you do when you're going through a panic attack? One, pause and breathe. You're going to try to take deep, slow breaths. And breathe out. And let your body relax, because you're usually going to go through a tensing of your body. You might feel it in your shoulders, your neck, your belly, but you want to relax your muscles. 2, let yourself know that if you are not in a dangerous situation, tell your brain, I'm not in a dangerous situation. There is no tiger. 3, recognize what are the triggers to your anxiety. Is it a fear of failure? Is it public speaking? Is it fear of judgment? Is it going out into an open space? And then you want to restructure the way that you think about that, either in your head or with journaling before the effect of dealing with it. If you get panic attacks, depending on certain circumstances, you want to slowly go through an exposure therapy of going through those situations in small little tiny increments in a way that you feel safe. And this is much better when you're doing it with a trained therapist, someone that you feel safe and trusting with, because they'll make sure that you're not going to go through it too much and not going to go through it too fast. Often when you're dealing with having panic attacks, less is more, and the pacing is really important. And the last part is, what do you think about yourself about dealing with it? If you're trash talking yourself the entire time, you're actually going to make yourself worse, because the way that you think about yourself, your self-reflection, is going to greatly increase or of course decrease how much adrenaline your body's going to say. If you're saying to yourself, I'm stupid and useless and I can't do this, then your body's going to say, oh, well, you're stupid and useless. You better take a whole bunch of adrenaline, because you're not going to be able to survive this without it. And so we really need to be paying attention to what are we advertising about ourselves inside of our own brain.
You know, she saved my life there from another kid. 5 years ago, I would have destroyed him. But she had to shoot him to save me, 14 years old, because I was too slow and too deaf to hear him coming.
So now you can see some of the pieces of why Joel is having these feelings of panic. His self-reflection on where he is and where he should be, he no longer sees himself as fit as he used to be, and because of that, he doesn't know that he's going to be able to deal with it. I would say also that he probably feels a lot of the weight of the guilt of all of the things that he's been through and that he hasn't been able to save people. He's just lost 3 people in a very short amount of time. And so that also changes our self-reflection, or do a really great job usually of lying to ourselves, of being able to say that things are okay, and we often minimize danger that's around us. But when we've gone through something that we didn't expect to have happen, that often shakes our feelings of self and our feelings of security in what we're able to do and what we can't. And so Joel's going through a lot of self-doubt. And so because of that, it's going to add to his anxiety. And then that feeling of the gravity, the weight of having to take care of someone who, one, is about the same age as his daughter, but also who is carrying the possible key to save all of humanity. You can see how that is a huge weight for anyone's shoulders, but especially for Joel, who no longer sees himself as capable as he used to be.
And today I thought that dog was going to tear her apart because it smelled something on her. And all I did was stand there. I couldn't move.
That self-reflection, the way that we frame what has happened to us, really changes the way that we see ourselves. And for Joel, he sees himself as he used to be a man of action, someone when an anxiety or something bad or an emergency happened, he was the first person to be able to do something, and he did it right. And in these cases, he judged that he handled it wrong. Interestingly enough, with the case with the dog, if he had made a move, it would have ended up with both of them being killed. So did Joel really make the wrong move, or did he do the best that he could with the situation at hand? We do the best that we can with the tools and the situation that's in front of us. And not always is that, in 2020 hindsight, going to be the perfect thing, but that's the best that we can do. And when you're making these snap decisions, it's really hard to be able to process enough information to always make the perfect move.
I couldn't think of anything to say. I was so afraid.
And for Joel, I'm so happy that in this case, he's found someone that he actually trusts enough to be able to be honest. I haven't seen Joel really share his feelings in a way that you could feel that he was feeling them. He's kind of done that a little bit with Ellie, but you can tell with his brother, this is a trusted relationship. He's able to say, I'm afraid, and you can feel the fear on his voice. He really means it. And I think that also he's doing it as a tool to let his brother know the gravity of what he's coping with so his brother can empathize with him. I think that a lot of people now are kind of taught that having these deep emotions, especially ones such as fear or sadness, means that they're weak or they're not good enough. And that's the opposite. Actually, being able to feel these feelings are a sign of strength. Feeling something is the honest and real way to be. And if you're strong enough, you're going to be able to carry that.
You think I can still handle things, but I'm not who I was. I'm weak.
See, and I don't like that. That's because it's so inaccurate. He's different. He definitely might not be as sharp, and he might not be able to hear as well as he used to be. But going through trauma is going to have an effect on you. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you human. That's what happens to us. He's not a machine, and he cares. If he had no empathy, then maybe none of this would really affect him. But then would he be the best person to be able to take care of Ellie? The fact that he cares about her, yes, in some ways that makes him vulnerable because he might take risks that he wouldn't already take. But that's the kind of person that I would want to have to take care of myself or someone that I cared about.
And I have dreams every night.
What kind of dreams?
I just know that when I wake up, I've lost something.
I love that his brother asked him about the dream. When we've gone through all of these traumatic events, we often replay them at night. Our brain is actually trying to make sense of them, solve them emotionally in a way. And for Joel, he hasn't just lost something, he's lost many things in his life. But I think that he means more that he's lost a piece of himself, something that he used to believe in, or his identity of how he used to see himself. And so what I would also want him to do is to be able to go through the emotions that he feels in his dreams and in his waking time. And what does that mean to him? So he can reform his identity in a way that is very honest and true, but no longer with any of these negative lies that he's carrying about that is just going to make him feel worse and be absolutely of no adaptive use to him. It isn't admitting that you have these weaknesses, because these are not actually weaknesses. These are the truths that you deal with. If you just shut them away and box them and put them into a closet, they're going to come out at any point in time when you don't want to, as possibly for Joel, panic attacks, or it could be traumatic flashbacks, because they're unresolved issues that your body wants you to be able to fix. You have these flashes because your body's trying to process something that is probably too deep, too emotional, and you have to do it in little tiny pieces. So when he's feeling good and strong, if he was able to share it and talk about it, one is it normalizes it. It lets you know that there's nothing wrong with you for feeling this way, and that's why a lot of support groups, everyone kind of shares what they feel comfortable to be able to share. And that also allows us to get rid of all these false defenses of I have to be super tough and not feel anything, which makes us feel when we do feel something that there's something wrong with us for feeling that. And that's such a lie. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us care. And that's what's so important to us as a community and that feeling of family. And so I think that for Joel to be able to share this with someone else that understands and empathizes and isn't going to judge him for that really helps Joel mirror that himself and hopefully not judge himself that harshly either.
I'm failing in my sleep. It's all I do. It's all I've ever done. It's failure again and again.
For that, you can tell that that's really Sarah that he's talking about, that it's being replayed out in other people, but it's kind of that projected fear that he was never able to save Sarah. And that kind of pain is really difficult to resolve. I think that for most people, that is usually easier to be able to deal with through journaling, through self-expression, through a creative way, or through seeing a therapist.
You want me to take her?
I'm just gonna get her killed, I know it. I have to leave her.
And I get why he's saying it, because he's afraid of failure. But the thing is that whenever you do something because of fear, usually the wrong reason. It might be the right answer, but it's the wrong reason for doing things, because once you start allowing your fear to take control and make decisions for you, that's what you're going to continue to do, and you're going to stop doing things that you probably should be doing, because that adds to your feeling of self-doubt. Now, for Joel, it's also that feeling of he doesn't want to have to carry that burden to his ego, that what happens if he does fail or something bad happens, because let's just say it, bad things happen always. None of us are immune to that, but running away from things isn't going to protect us from that either. And so you really want to check when you're allowing your anxiety to control your actions. You don't want the 3-year-old part of your brain to have the keys to your brain's car. Unless, of course, you're actually in a life or death situation, then sometimes the best thing to do is just do what your body wants you to do.
I mean, it's why you took off on me, right? To make up for the things we did. Tommy, you're the only one I trust. If anyone else sees those bites on her, what's under her skin, they'll shoot her. It's the last thing I'll ever ask of you.
Now, I go through the interaction between Joel and Ellie from the video game, which is the scene that's right after this scene. So if you want to take a look at that, it's almost exactly the same scene, and you can let me know your thoughts on that scene versus the way that they did it in the show. Now, let's be honest. There's very little any of us can do, much less The Last of Us can do about a zombie apocalypse. But there's a lot that we can do about our passwords, remembering them and keeping them safe, especially thanks to today's sponsor, NordPass. NordPass lets you generate strong, unique passwords for every website and every account, and automatically fills in the logins for you so that there's nothing to type and nothing to remember. It can autofill your credit cards as well. And especially for someone like me that has a whole bunch of dyslexic traits, I can't remember passwords, I can't remember my account numbers. I'm lucky that I remember how to log into my computer because I use my fingerprint. These are one of the biggest causes of stress for me. NordPass helps make this simple, easy, and it remembers things so you don't have to. That means that you can browse faster, shop faster, and more securely with up to 6 devices and everything synced seamlessly across all your accounts. And NordPass has zero knowledge of your logins. That means that your passwords are safe, even on their servers. Protect your accounts and protect yourself. Head on over to NordPass for their very best offer by going to nordpass.com/GeorgiaNordPass. And using the code GeorgiaNordPass at checkout, you get an additional 1 month free. That's nordpass.com/GeorgiaNordPass. Code Georgia NordPass. Clicking on that link really does help this channel, and so does checking out more videos on the playlist on my series, The Last of Us. Let me know how you feel Joel dealt with his feelings of self-doubt and panic attacks, and what do you think are those tools or techniques that he should be applying more to himself that he isn't yet doing?